Thank you all for being here this morning. We're going to have a lot of fun talking about BEC. Now, I'm going to do my best not to say the word Nigeria. Oh, sorry, a little late. All right, never mind. We're going to talk a little bit about Nigeria as well, because it's an important thing to understand what our threat actors are. So let's have some fun. I like to have fun with presentations. So if some of you recognize these quotes up here, then fantastic. If not, don't worry. I give correct attribution where I need to. We're going to start out really quickly by focusing on why we are losing this battle. And anyone who thinks we're winning this battle, I have some horrible, horrible news for you. We're then going to talk about Tradecraft, Shark, We're also going to talk then about how we work together. And last but not least, I have a little bit of a tool release for you as well. So we're going to have some fun. All right, any fans of The Office in here? The US-based Office? There was a fantastic quote that Michael Scott said. Well, I'm saying Michael Scott said it. If you want to lose, pick a fight with revenue. I don't know how many folks that are Intel practitioners or analysts or digital forensics and incident response or whatever acronym or logo you'd like to throw on whatever role it is you do. I don't know how many folks consider that this is actually what you're battling up against in a lot of cases. I'm aware. Malware is super sexy. Don't get me wrong. I've seen some amazing exploits in my time. I've seen some nations do some things that have completely blown me away. But I have to remember that at some point in time, I am battling with dollar signs. When I was here 2 years ago, on this exact stage, in this exact room, giving a very, very similar talk, we had some statistics from the FBI. Between October 2013 and May 2016, this particular type of attack, or these groups of attacks, had stolen somewhere in the vicinity of $3.1 billion in losses. Has anyone done the math really quick? I did. Saved you the hassle. It's an average of somewhere in the vicinity of $3.168 million a day. I don't know. Anyone here making that much money in revenue right now? Because this attack group is. Guess what? They updated our stats for us. June 2018, the FBI came back and said global aggregate, $12.5 billion in losses. We now have a threat group that is now escalated to a whopping $7.366 million a day average take-home pay. Not a bad way to run your threat campaign. So if anyone out there is ever asking the question of, like, it's just spear phishing, right? Why should I care? You're clearly then telling me that you can afford this loss, in which case I'd like to be your best friend, if we possibly could. This is why we have to care about this, because IP theft is cool. Not cool that it's stolen, but it's a cool thing to follow. Year-long investigations are amazing to follow. Very, very intricate, detailed, quiet, silent, stealthy threat actors are amazing to follow. These guys right here, this is days, maybe weeks, at most, inside of an environment. Sometimes you'll find a couple months-long cases. We'll talk about those. But this is a threat actor that needs a couple of days in order to literally bring companies to their knees, which we'll talk about in a moment as well. All right, let's talk about some Tradecraft, because that's one of the key things that has changed, that has developed about this particular threat actor. And of course, anywhere I can insert the theme song into your head, I will. Good luck getting it out. Now, by the way, Tradecraft has the correct number of syllables to fill right into Baby Shark as well. 2 years ago, this is the example that I used. Believe it or not, this example still trips up a lot of people. We get things like late in the day, transposed domain names, fake forwarded emails, basically text manipulation. Really, really simple and straightforward. This is an easy fish. A lot of folks in this room, who would ever click that? Who would ever open that? But see, you're not the intended audience of this particular email. We're going to talk a lot about the human side of these attacks and how it gets forgotten in a lot of this as well. This was a really simple flow model for our attackers. I fish a target. That target receives an invoice. They send money to that particular bank account. I have someone go raid that bank account, and boom, I'm done. Wash, rinse, and repeat. This earned $3 billion over the course of a couple years. It worked. It was great. But then guess what happened? Snarky, smart-ass security researchers get on stage at the 2017 CTI Summit and say, look at what all these people are doing. Look at all these techniques. Look at how we can thwart all of this. So our attackers had to get a lot smarter. They also used to give us a lot of really nice pivot points as well. I used to get PDFs and metadata. They would buy a computer and they would register it to their actual name. They would leave their address behind. They would post pictures of themselves on Facebook buying G-Wagons with the flag and the license plate and the mailbox right behind it. It was like a threat intel dream. It was almost like every single day was the APT1 report. We're like, oh, okay, cool. There we go. There's the guy getting the money out of the bank. There's him stuck in traffic in downtown Lagos. And there he is buying a car with said stolen money. I can trace this back together. But unfortunately, this was not going to last forever. By the way, don't get comfortable with levels of data, levels of attribution, or any sort of intelligence that we are releasing or that an attacker may become aware of, because they'll take it away and they'll get smarter. Here's the new news, the new way that these attacks take place. Anyone seen this page before? I hope not, because I'm hosting it in DigitalOcean right now on a droplet that's costing me $5 a month, and any credential that gets entered gets emailed directly to me. So I hope you have not seen this page before, but I'm sure you've seen a page like this page. And the distinction that I just made there is the difference between a successful phish and an unsuccessful phish. And that's what these attackers are taking advantage of. It is just enough. How many people in this room immediately let their guard down a little bit? Now, you weren't aware that you let your guard down, but you did. I'm familiar with that. Nice little stock hipster art in the background, probably someone in a Starbucks on a MacBook. There's a little top of a nice flower latte to the side. Someone's in a nice pullover sweater, probably working on their novel or something like that, and that's your login page, because that's what you think about when you log in. By the way, if anyone ever sends you a document and says, I am storing this in OneDrive for you, the other mail login is not the way you access that thing. Our attackers got smarter. They figured out how to duplicate websites. They also figured out that there was other steps beyond this. What some attackers do is they're really good at step one. They build an amazing facade. And then you walk into the warehouse and it's just this absolute nightmare. These guys take it a step further. They've actually done some work, and they've built out these login pages. How familiar does that look? Guard goes down further. How about that one? Can anyone say that is not the legitimate code that provides the login box for Microsoft? It definitely is, and as we all know, there's a second page to that as well. And you better believe the second step has the nice little multi-dot scrolling bar at the top, which is Microsoft's nice little spinny wheel. And then sometimes you just got to get creds. So they just throw some sort of random page in there. Because, I don't know, if you're not used to seeing this or this, maybe you're used to seeing that. But either way, credentials go back to the same place. Our attackers that were once creating very, very basic, very, very simple PDFs also learned how to code. Sorry, let me rephrase that. They learned how to steal code from other people as well. Before we get to their code, though, some of their various email techniques, and I apologize, this font, I would like it to be a little bit larger, but that's okay. We had a last-minute AV switch. They'll use transpose character substitution domains. They'll still do that. That's still a big one. They will use Unicode play. Anyone here been caught in the Unicode trap? Believe it or not, for some reason, someone decided a long time ago that we might want to put emojis inside of email subjects. Those of you who get spam mail know exactly what I'm talking about. I can put nice, big, beautiful, bright emojis. I can also hide things inside of there as well. Email body encoding obfuscation. Anyone here familiar with RFC 2047 off the top of their head? I know someone's Googling it right now. If you're not, guess what? That's the RFC for SMTP that allows you to put encoded email data in your headers. That is a subject line that says account invoice number 19043 or something like that. Do you think the user ever sees that text? By the way, has anyone here ever written a successful regex for base 64? Good luck. We're doing a lot of processing to convert that and get it working. I can speak from personal 3-day-old experience. Text filters inside of O365 and Gmail have a very, very tough time with those particular strings. Very tough. But they get rendered in the browser, no problem. Our attackers know little intricate details like this as well. Be honest. Did anyone here just learn in the past 4 minutes that I could put base 64 data inside of an SMTP header? Because guess what? I learned this recently too. Our attackers, though, they study this. They watch these different things. How can I make plays here? Does this feel like spam email tactics? Does this feel like click here for enlargement links and, other sort of spam emails you get? This seems like techniques that, I wouldn't expect a group this successful to be using, but sure enough, they are. There is a whole nother topic of attackers blending in commodity techniques into their workflows, but we're not going to get into that right now. We're going to stick on this one. But just understand that they are studying RFCs, they are studying how data gets represented, they are propping up environments, they are replicating attacks. They are doing all of this to see what does it look like on the other side. I'm going to splice a couple slides in as we walk through the new news of BECs. And I'm going to start to call out some techniques. So we've already seen website replication. I'm aware that's not how you spell replication. The A key on my keyboard broke. Data encoding, data obfuscation, multiple types of spear phishing, and these are very, very targeted campaigns. Let's talk about how some of their other techniques have advanced as well. They've learned how to code. This is the PHP code that was from that previous page. For anyone who's looking too closely, the third line is an attacker email address. It's likely been shut down by now. But if anyone wants to go check and have some fun, it's there. If anyone has a Gmail backdoor they want to activate really quick, you can go and find out the population of clients here. But look at this code. This code is commented, number one. Well, it's got 3, 4, 5 comments, which, don't lie, is more than some of us include in our scripts. It is nicely formatted. There are conditional statements. Did they give me OneDrive? Did they give me Outlook? There is also, to the right side here, geolocation lookup. Did the individual that I fished in San Francisco log in from San Francisco? There is an htaccess file that is too large to include with this particular slide right here. Who here works for a security company? There is an htaccess file with your egress IP inside of that htaccess. You coming from your home office cannot access most of these sites because they stop you at the IP level. Guess what? That's the most basic type of firewall you'll ever run into. But guess what? It also works. It works really well. And they prevent these types of things from happening. Everyone, this is a group that for the largest part of, I can remember in the past handful of years, has just been a nuisance to everyone. We're seeing replicated but well-structured code. We're seeing security research firms prevented from access. We're seeing targeted campaigns. We're seeing use of data obfuscation, use of data encoding. Starting to feel a lot like a advanced group. Starting to sound like it, at least. So let's call out a couple things here. Automated credential collection, normalization, and enrichment. If you think there are not scripts on the other side of this email address right here that is collecting and collating email addresses and providing them in an automated manner and also doing correlation for you, I've got some awful, awful wake-up news for you, because I guarantee you they are. They are very aware of who they break into. We're going to talk about how and why as well. Let's talk about the new type of attack, how these things are launched now. Same deal. We have a target. Anyone here have an email account? How many people have you emailed using your email account? There's this like scary, scary notion out there of someone gets access to your email account, and a lot of people think, oh my gosh, I've sent W-2 forms in there. I've got Social Securities inside of there. I've got all this data in there. I know none of us have ever emailed unencrypted sensitive work data, so I won't say that out loud. However, there's a lot of things in our email accounts that we wouldn't want someone to get access to. These guys want your address book. That's it. They want your address book. And here's how our attacks work these days. First off, if you notice, there is a fork in the road. We're going to turn right first. We take that first fork in the road, someone breaches a target, they get into that particular account, and they start scraping that address book. They start saying, so-and-so works in such and such department. I'm going to get the department. I'm going to find the CEO. I'm going to find, wait, boom, in gold. There's the person responsible for money transfers. Let me break this down into another situation for you. The earlier version of these attacks needed to phish someone in accounting, preferably someone who was in charge of sending money, because that person needed to process a document. I don't need that anymore. The whole company is now up for grabs, because all I need is the global address list. And Active Directory takes care of the rest for me. So all I have to do is hit someone somewhere with an email account, and then I can start to enumerate. Also, what happens if I send an email internal to internal? Do I gain all the wonderful benefits of all these external email things that have been put in place? Do I get that nice little EXT flag added onto my subject line? Do I get some sort of a warning that shows up and says, hey, FYI, you might not want to open this thing because nothing works out here? I hope no one here's in this boat, but I've been in a lot of situations where companies turn off internal to internal monitoring. There's way too much going back and forth. We don't want to get that taken care of. Think about the compliance risks. If you were monitoring and scanning your own internal email, they know this. They know how we treat internal email, and they use that to their advantage as well. So, the next thing they do, they also take a deeper look at your address book. Your internal address list, fantastic. Who else are you talking to outside? Who else are you emailing? Let me phrase this in an intelligence way. Who else do you have a trusted relationship with that I can take advantage of right now? What other credentials have I stolen? What other accounts do I have access to? Can I map out your entire supply chain from attack to attack, from victim to victim, just by doing address list correlation? And I'm telling you right now, the answer is obviously yes. Now, I'll pause here, because I know some of you out here are like, yeah, but this is not as fancy as, like, stealing Kerberos tickets and hopping across forests and all that really, really cool stuff. Can I give these guys bonus points because they don't need to? They already have what it is they need. Who here has got O365 tied into Active Directory? Don't raise your hands. There are some folks in the room who really want to know that. I don't want to make you volunteer that information for us. But let's start to draw a lot of links and correlations between these two here. And all of a sudden, I've got a pesky nuisance group that primarily utilizes spear phishing that all of a sudden just encountered my entire Active Directory as well as a target list of all the people who won't think twice about an email address from me. Pretty sure that gives us another technique that we'll look at in a moment. That whole diagram that I walked through just a moment ago gets washed, rinsed, and repeated and daisy-chained for as long as they can possibly go. Because guess what? I already have the trust, and I can go from address book to address book to address book, technique to technique to technique, until finally, boom, I've got a hold of 20 different companies all daisy-chained together, and I didn't have to send but one spear phishing email. That is the beauty, and again, I'm being very careful on compliments here, but that is the beauty of one spearfish. One turns into 20 targets. Talk about a threat intel diagram. Anyone ever drawn link analyses like these together before where you're looking at some of these things go through? I've easily seen super, super, super advanced groups with the same type of correlation, same type of lateral movement taking place. Let's talk about who this particular target may be. It may be you directly. It may be one of your shippers, maybe a supplier, some other external vendor, HVAC, some other vendor who supplies a service to your company. There's also attacks taking place right now on real estates. There are spoofed C-suite ACH changes, spoofed website fixes, all different types. If you can think of a way that I can insert myself into the flow of money inside of an organization, you are a target, or that particular transaction is a target. So I'm going to classify a new technique. I couldn't find this in the attack matrix. Intra and inter-organizational lateral movement via email. As far as I'm concerned, and experience tells me that it works, and I've seen it happen. Now, again, my goal is, not to break into the file share or rip credit cards or social security numbers out of a database. But if my goal is to steal money, and my goal is to insert myself into the payment flow of 20, 30, somewhere in the vicinity of 800,000 monetary organizations, no problem. Got that sorted out. Here's one example that actually worked this case about 2 weeks ago. This is a very, very straightforward example. A company has a vendor. That vendor does things for the company. The vendor bills the company pays the vendor. Hopefully no one has an issue with this particular cycle. This is how the world works. The attacker compromised the vendor. Not the company, the vendor. Sat in the vendor and monitored and watched for all this email activity. Who are they talking to? Who are they billing? Who are they sending invoices to? And you better believe that the attacker then referenced the exact same invoice from the month of November and said, hey, company, we have not been paid yet for November. Could you please pay us? What followed was a 12 back and forth email conversation about, we have not been paid, I swear I sent it, I'm so sorry, we didn't receive it, blah, 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 blah. Oh, by the way, we now bank in Hong Kong. And at this point in time, the person at legitimate company feels so awful about not having paid this vendor that they're like, I will do whatever you want, no problem. If anyone in here thinks that that feeling of awfulness and regret and remorse was accidental, you are 100% wrong. That is the goal. Make someone feel so bad about not paying you that they will happily redirect money anywhere in the world for you. And again, it works to the tune of probably now upwards of $14 to $15 billion. So I'm going to call out another technique, trusted relationship abuse. We saw this a little bit earlier as well. What do they do once they get access to these inboxes? Well, as I said earlier, they take advantage of your address book. That's the big one. They get trust. They are in an account that you won't think twice about. They will also drop in inbox rules, where they will forward your inbox or emails that match a certain thing, pick a phrase if you want, and they'll forward that out to some sort of external account. They'll also drop in SMTP forwarding and say, you know what, screw it. Every email that comes through the door, send it over my way. They'll search for keywords, wire, payment, invoice, remittance, ACH, so on and so forth. They look for terms that help them figure out the flow of money. And I really hate to say this, but I've also seen the case that I just walked through a moment ago, multi-factor auth, being thwarted as well. Now, before anyone goes super crazy, this was not a multi-factor auth bypass. They do two things to get around this. Number one, they get legitimate access to an account. they set up an application password, which gives them single-factor auth to get in. That's one method. I should say there's really three. Method 2, try to log in. You get prompted for multi-factor. As long as you select Keep Me Signed In, you've got enough time. When you get a multi-factor phone call, what do? You answer it, press 1, whatever it is you're supposed to do, right? Do we ever take a step back and say, wait a second, I didn't just try to log into anything? So we're in this weird phase now where we've made a security recommendation for years, and now the users are kind of in changing password world, where they're like, this thing is just a nuisance. Yeah, whatever, accept. I would hope that if anyone in this room and anyone at the companies you all work for received a duo push in the middle of the night, you would ignore it. Unfortunately, the average bear does not. So the users accept anyways. Let's round up these techniques. Well-funded, trusted relationship abuse, lateral movement, internal and external, data obfuscation, encoding, automated credential theft, targeted campaigns, website replication, the A worked there, multiple types of spear phishing, MFA bypass, exfiltration via email. At what point do we start to call this an advanced threat actor? At what point do we start to treat them with the same level of respect? And of course, that's a I want to burn you to the ground respect that we do with other nation states. At what point, how many boxes do I need to check as a threat group for someone to finally say, we have a serious problem here? We'll talk about that one in just a little bit. In case you're confused by this particular list right here, I went ahead and threw it into what you may be more familiar with. Granted, it's hard to read, and this is, yes, just a screenshot of Attack Navigator, but I went ahead and selected some boxes. But what I started to think about was actually something else. How do we start to defend against this better? How do we get to a place where our users are not suffering so much? And I wish there was some sort of structure I could use in order to provide guidance to people. Some sort of boxy framework setup thing. I came across a matrix, and I had this brilliant idea for designing a matrix. The defense matrix. But I was afraid that no one in here would read it, so I made it lead. Then I was afraid Katie wouldn't be able to read it. So then it's the defense matrix. Wait, hold on. Then I was afraid that Chris wouldn't be able to read it. So you can use an S or a C if you want. The defense matrix, and again, I'm having fun here, but in a very, very, very real sense, if you're taking a photo of this, there's 3 more columns to add. An defense matrix very, very really gave me a way to talk to my clients and say, you know what? Here's the things that you need to be considering. I'm not going to send you bullet lists in an email. I'm going to start giving you a structure of things to think about. Then I said, what happens if we actually got breached? I'll give you a recovery column. Call the FBI, call a bank, call your external counsel, call internal counsel, change your passwords, implement MFA. Wait, you should have already done that authentication. And then I said, what if all else fails? Unplug the internet, go home, polish resume, or just do nothing and turn a blind eye. But you know what, everyone? We're missing one key piece to all this. All of this assumes that there's ones and zeros that I can control and that I can program and that I can deal with on the back end. You're missing the true defense mechanism here, which is the human, the most important one. The way to thwart attacks like this is trust your humans. This doesn't feel right. That is not usually how Matt asks for money. I swear to God I paid him that invoice. Oh wait, I did. There's the ACH transfer. Did you ever think that in the course of 13 emails being exchanged back and forth, no one ever went to the bank and said, can you just verify that that check actually got sent? No one made that additional step. So let humans do what we're good at doing, which is feeling uncomfortable about things and feeling uncomfortable about security. And use that to help determine what your environment is going to look like if you allow these things to take place. All right, that's enough about the attacker. Let's take 5 minutes and talk a little bit about how we make this better, because as I said, I stood on this stage 2 years ago, and I gave some advice about how I think this could be better, and in the past 2 years, we have seen an incredible global response. Those of you who work in CTI, I hopefully am going to change the way you think about collaboration afterwards, because it matters. This is the meme. Not really a meme, the picture I gave in the last presentation. Since then, we've seen multiple takedowns of these particular campaigns. Operation Wire back in June brought down over close to 80 people in, as you can see, 6 different countries around the globe that were perpetrating these particular attacks. We now have an international open Slack focused on targeting and bringing down BEC. Yes, there's a couple names in there, but I've gone ahead and redacted what it is they said. Anyone here can join. I would like to see a $12.5 billion threat actor with an open world join Slack to bring them down. And I hope to God they're in the channels. I really do. Because the faster I see you run, the faster I start catching up, and then eventually I get ahead of you. That's where we're going to end up. How many arrests do you want to see? You want to continue walking through history? I can just pick numbers, I can pick jail sentences, and I can line these guys up, one by one by one. It works. It happens. Last but not least, I gave a slight webcast talking about O365 investigations back in July, and I released a tool that was very, very loosely maintained. And again, thinking back to code commenting and that kind of stuff. Microsoft has done us a very, very, very wonderful service of changing the way these log formats are stored every, 6 minutes, it feels like. But that being said, I've gone ahead and updated this framework. OLAF, or the O365 Log Analysis Framework, as I call it, now, well, I should say when I go and press commit after this talk, or push, sorry, Scott, push after this talk, when that commit takes place, you're going to see updated dashboards for new Exchange and user operations. In February, Microsoft is going to start recording mail read operations. There are going to be dashboards and tools built out for that as well. There is also additional parsing and support for user and Active Directory logs. I have also built, and I will be releasing, an anonymized IP address database that you can download and update at will and use for API calls to see when someone's leaving out of a VPN node that you weren't aware of before. And I also had the wonderful pleasure of writing last night a free geodistance calculator. So what I encourage you all to do is if you find yourself having to investigate these particular scenarios, here's a tool that literally is a couple buttons, a couple lines of script, run it, find evil. It used to be really simple. In July, you'd wait for the Nigeria dashboard to populate, then you'd be done. But they started using, exit VPNs and so on and so forth. My last and final comment for everyone in the room, work together. Work together to help solve these particular problems. We're all in this room, so we already have some sort of semblance of working together. But I want to share a little story really quick, and this will be my last thing, and I'll be done. I worked a BEC case back in May last year with a company that had lost somewhere in the neighborhood of about $2.5 million in a 72-hour period. Fish 1 was $800,000. Fish 2 was $1.7 million. And Fish 1 was, again, on a Monday. Fish 2 was on a Wednesday. I got a call on Thursday. And, as you can imagine, that company was in dire straits. This attack that they had suffered brought down 30% of their workforce. 30% of the people they had employed had to be let go as a result of this attack. I'm not going to get into a further discussion of this, but this company had already reduced 40% of their workforce due to ongoing tariffs. 70% of their workforce, almost half of it directly attributable to Nigerian scams. Luckily, and this is not a horn toot moment, this is a reflection. Luckily, we got involved. We got in touch with law enforcement quick enough. We got in touch with the banks quick enough. We got in touch with whoever we needed to quick enough. And we got about 70% of the money back. That 30% reduction in workforce didn't have to be reduced anymore. They luckily were able to keep their jobs. So I'm going to end with this. The work that we do, we keep people employed. We keep kids in college. We keep generations going on. I'm not trying to give you all any value of what you do. You hopefully already have that. But if at any point in time, the work that you're doing, the analysis that you're performing, the things that you're uncovering, if you come across it at some point and you say, what value is someone getting out of this? A whole family of people working at a company together were still able to earn money to send their kids to college. We're still able to do what they wanted to do. This is not a dream moment. The work that we do here, whether you see it or not, keeps dreams alive. So continue fighting the good fight, work together, share indicators, share techniques, do what we can to make this work. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.